David Wells pressed his forehead against the cold window of the transport shuttle. Outside, the Interstellar Learning Institute grew larger with each passing second. It looked nothing like the universities back on Earth. This place was a massive sphere of silver and blue metal, floating in the darkness of space like a jewel. Lights blinked across its surface in patterns he did not understand. His stomach twisted with nervousness. He was the first human student here in 12 years. The last one had apparently caused some kind of incident with a chemistry experiment that melted through 3 floors. Nobody wanted to talk about it. The shuttle docked with a soft thud. David grabbed his single bag and followed the other passengers out. The corridor smelled strange, like metal and something sweet he could not name. The gravity felt slightly wrong too, just light enough to make each step feel bouncy. A tall creature waited at the entrance checkpoint. Its body looked like it was made of flowing water, held together by some invisible force. 2 large eyes floated within the transparent form, watching him approach. "David Wells from Earth," the creature said. Its voice bubbled like water running over stones. "I am Instructor Bellera. Welcome to the Institute. Please follow me to your assigned quarters." David followed the instructor through winding hallways. Other students stopped to stare at him. A group of insect-like beings chittered and clicked as he passed. Their bodies were covered in shiny green plates, and each had 4 arms that moved in unsettling patterns. One creature that looked like living crystal actually backed away when David met its gaze. "They fear you," Bellera said without turning around. "Humans come from what we call a death world. Your planet is hostile in ways most species cannot imagine. Predators, diseases, weather that can kill in minutes. Most of these students come from safe worlds. You make them uncomfortable." "I have not done anything wrong," David said quietly. "Your existence is enough. They look at you and see a creature that survived conditions that would kill them. It frightens them." His quarters were small but functional, a sleeping platform, a desk, and a wall screen for studying. The window showed a view of distant stars. Bellera handed him a data pad with his schedule. "Your first class begins in 2 hours. Interspecies relations and fear response protocols. Do not be late." The instructor flowed away, leaving David alone. He sat on the sleeping platform and pulled out a photo from his bag. It showed him standing next to his grandfather's old horse, Thunder. The horse had been mean, kicked 3 farmhands, but David had spent weeks earning its trust. By the end of summer, Thunder would eat apples from his hand. His grandfather's advice echoed in his memory. "Animals are not mean, boy. They are scared or hurt or protecting something. You figure out which, and you can work with anything." David wondered if that applied to aliens too. 2 hours later, he entered his first classroom. It was arranged in a circle, with seats adjusted for different body types. About 20 students were already there. The chittering insect creatures clustered together on one side. The crystal beings sat apart, light refracting through their bodies in rainbow patterns. There were species he had no names for yet. One looked like a small elephant made of purple fur. Another seemed to be just a floating ball of gas contained in a clear suit. David took an empty seat. The crystal being next to him immediately moved to a different spot. He heard the word Deathworlder whispered in several different languages. His translator earpiece was still learning them, but the tone was clear enough. "Attention, class." Bellera flowed into the center of the circle. "Today we begin studying fear response protocols. Every species evolved differently. What terrifies one species might mean nothing to another. Understanding these differences is critical for diplomatic relations." A small insect creature raised one of its 4 arms. "Instructor Bellera, I am Rena. I have a question. Is it safe to have a human in this class when we study fear? They are predators." Several students made sounds of agreement. David felt his face grow hot. "Humans are omnivores, actually," David said. "We eat plants and meat both. You hunt," a crystal being said sharply. "I am Tolis. I have read about your species. You hunted megafauna to extinction on your world. You are dangerous." "That was thousands of years ago," David replied. "We also domesticated animals. We protected them, bred them, lived alongside them. We had to learn about the creatures around us or we would not have survived." "Enough," Bellera said. "This class will teach you all something valuable. Tolis, your people evolved on a world with no predators at all. You have never known real danger. Rena, your species developed on a moon with very simple life forms. Nothing there could truly threaten you. David's people evolved alongside some of the most dangerous creatures in the known galaxy. Lions, bears, crocodiles, snakes with venom that kills in minutes. They learned to understand these creatures because they had to. The classroom fell silent. Next week we will have a practical exercise, Balara continued. We will visit the containment levels deep below the institute. There, we keep specimens of various dangerous species for research purposes. You will observe them and document your fear responses. This will help you understand yourselves and others better. Tolas made a sound like glass scraping glass. I do not fear simple beasts. My people are beyond such primitive responses. David said nothing. He had seen that kind of confidence before. Usually right before someone got kicked by thunder. Pride always came before a fall, his grandfather used to say. We shall see, Balara said. Class dismissed. Study your materials on predator species from various worlds. Come prepared. As the students filed out, David remained seated for a moment. He looked down at his hands. These aliens saw him as something dangerous, something to fear. But back on Earth, he was just a farm kid who was good with animals. The galaxy was going to take some getting used to. He gathered his things and headed back to his quarters, feeling the weight of 20 different species watching his every move. Tomorrow would be interesting. 7 days of classes had not made David any more popular. Students still avoided him in the hallways. Rena would not sit near him. Tolas continued making comments about primitive Death World savages just loud enough for David to hear. Only the purple furry creature, whose name translated to gentle wind, ever nodded at him in greeting. Today was the practical exercise. The class gathered at the entrance to the lower levels. These corridors looked older than the rest of the institute. The walls were thicker, made of some dark metal that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Warning symbols marked every door in a dozen different languages. Beyond this point, we enter the containment zone, Balara announced. Her watery form seemed more solid here, as if she was preparing for danger. We maintain research specimens of predatory and dangerous species from across the galaxy. Today you will observe one of our most significant specimens, the creature we call the Shadow Maw. Rena's chitin plates rattled nervously. That is the creature from the Void Reaches? The one that has killed 17 research teams? It killed 17 teams before we learned proper containment procedures, Balara corrected. Now it is perfectly secure. You will observe from behind triple reinforced force fields. The exercise is simple. Watch the creature. Note your physical and emotional responses. Write a report on how your species-specific fear reactions manifest. They descended deeper. The air grew colder. David noticed the walls were scarred in places, as if something had clawed or burned the metal. Emergency lights pulsed red at regular intervals. Tolas moved close to David, light refracting sharply through his crystalline body. I wonder, human, will you flee when you see a real predator? Not your Earth animals, but something that evolved to kill? I guess we will find out, David said calmly. The observation room was circular, with a massive window taking up one entire wall. Beyond the window was darkness. Balara touched a control panel and light slowly brightened in the containment chamber. David had seen many animals in his life. He had watched nature documentaries about sharks and big cats. He had even seen a grizzly bear once during a camping trip. None of that prepared him for the Shadow Maw. The creature was enormous, at least 4 times the size of an elephant. Its body seemed to shift and change as it moved, as if it was made of living shadow rather than solid flesh. 6 legs supported its bulk, each ending in claws that looked like black metal. Its head was long and narrow, with too many eyes arranged in patterns that hurt to look at. When it opened its mouth, David counted 3 rows of teeth. But what made it truly terrifying was the sound. A low rumble that David felt in his chest, in his bones. It resonated at a frequency that made his heart beat faster, made his hands shake. Around him, the other students reacted in pure terror. Rena froze completely, her body going rigid. Her species played dead when threatened. Tolas's crystalline form flickered and dimmed, light scattering in all directions. The purple creature Gentle Wind collapsed into a small ball of fur. The gas being's containment suit shook violently. Several students ran from the room entirely. Their screams echoed down the corridor. Balara seemed to shrink, her watery form condensing. This is normal, she said, though her voice shook. The Shadow Maw evolved to trigger fear. It produces sounds below normal hearing range. It releases chemicals that activate panic responses in most oxygen-breathing species. It moves in ways that confuse spatial recognition. In nature, prey would flee immediately. That is how it hunted. David felt all of it, his heart hammered. His palms sweated. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but he stayed at the window watching. "Interesting," he said quietly. "Interesting," Tolas managed to say, his voice like breaking glass. "How can you stand there?" "Because I am watching its behavior," David said. "Look at how it moves. See that pacing pattern? 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. That is not hunting behavior. That is stress. And look at its body. Those are scars, old ones. It has been hurt." "It is a monster," Rena whispered, though she still had not moved from her frozen position. "It is a prisoner," David said. "Watch its eyes. They keep going to that corner. I bet that is where it sleeps. It wants to go there now, but we have turned on the lights. We have disturbed it." The shadow maw moved closer to the window, its many eyes focused on the students. It opened its mouth and made a sound that rattled the reinforced glass. "The force fields will hold," Bellara said, though she did not sound certain. Tolas, perhaps trying to recover his pride, laughed. The sound was sharp and mocking. "This is what frightens the galaxy? It is trapped, powerless. I could face this creature without fear." "Please be quiet," David said. "You are making it angry." "Nonsense. It cannot hear us through the barriers." But the shadow maw was definitely reacting to Tolas. It moved toward the crystal being's position, body lowering into what David recognized as an aggressive posture. The rumbling grew louder. Then warning lights started flashing throughout the observation room. "Primary containment field fluctuating," an automated voice announced. "Power coupling failure in Sector 7. Secondary barriers activating." "That is impossible," Bellara said. "The systems were checked this morning." The shadow maw slammed against the force field. Once, twice. The barrier flickered with each impact, showing visible ripples like disturbed water. "We need to evacuate," Bellara ordered. "Everyone to the exit now!" But before anyone could move, the creature hit the field again. This time, sparks exploded across the barrier. The lights in the observation room went dark for 3 seconds. When they came back on, the force field was gone. The only thing between the students and the shadow maw was the reinforced glass window. The creature hit the window. Cracks spread across the surface like spider webs. "Emergency lockdown," the automated voice said, sealing observation room. "Initiating containment protocols." Metal doors started sliding closed over the exit. Half the students made it through before the doors sealed shut. David, Bellara, Rena, Tolas, and 3 others were trapped inside. The shadow maw hit the window again. More cracks appeared. Glass fragments fell inward. "The window will not hold," Bellara said. "Emergency chambers now." Small alcoves lined the walls, designed as safe spaces for exactly this kind of emergency. Everyone ran for them. Doors slid shut, sealing the students in individual protective chambers. Everyone except David. He stood at the cracking window, watching the shadow maw prepare for another strike. Something about the creature's behavior bothered him. This was not hunting behavior. This was panic. The creature was as scared as the students were. "David, get into a chamber," Bellara shouted from her sealed alcove. The window shattered. The shadow maw pushed through, glass fragments bouncing off its dark hide. It pulled itself into the observation room, filling the space with its massive body. The low-frequency rumble intensified until David could barely think. The creature's many eyes fixed on him. It moved forward, claws scraping the metal floor. This close, David could see that its body was not made of shadow but of something solid that absorbed light. He could see the scars more clearly now. Burns, cuts, evidence of a hard life. From the emergency chambers, his classmates watched in horror. They were certain they were about to see a human die. But David did not run. Instead, he slowly sat down on the floor, crossing his legs. He made himself smaller, less threatening. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. "Fear makes them dangerous, boy. Understanding makes them safe." The shadow maw came closer, its massive head lowering toward him. David could feel its breath, hot and strange. The fear was overwhelming. Every cell in his body wanted to flee, but he sat still and began to speak in a low, calm voice. "Easy now. Easy. You are scared. I know, this is all wrong for you, is it not? Too bright, too loud. You just want to be left alone." The creature's rumbling changed pitch slightly. Its eyes, all of them, focused on David with terrible intensity, and David looked back, refusing to show fear, trying to show understanding instead. His classmates watched from their chambers, unable to look away from what they thought would be a tragedy. The shadow maw circled David slowly. Its claws clicked against the metal floor with each step. The sound echoed in the sealed observation room, mixing with the low rumble that came from deep within the creature's body. That rumble vibrated through the floor, through David's bones, making his teeth ache. From their emergency chambers, the other students could only watch. Belara pressed against the transparent door of her alcove, her watery form rippling with distress. Rena had folded into herself, chitin plates locked tight. Tolas had gone completely dark, all light extinguished from his crystalline body. David kept his breathing steady. In through the nose, out through the mouth, slow and calm. He had learned this technique when working with spooked horses. Panic was contagious. Calm could be contagious too if you were patient enough. The shadow maw came closer. David could smell it now. A sharp scent like ozone after lightning. Its many eyes studied him from different angles. He noticed that the eyes were not all the same. Some were large, others small. Some focused on him while others scanned the room. It was processing information from multiple sources at once. "You are very intelligent, are you not?" David said softly. "Too smart to be locked in a cage. Too smart to be treated like a monster." The creature's head tilted just slightly. One of its front legs moved forward, claws fully extended. David's heart hammered, but he did not move. He recognized this behavior. The creature was testing him. Back on the farm, his grandfather's bull had done something similar. The bull would charge, stopping just short, seeing if you would flinch. If you ran, the bull would chase. If you held your ground, the bull would respect you. The shadow maw lunged forward. Its massive head came within inches of David's face. Hot breath washed over him. The fear-inducing rumble intensified until David thought his heart might stop from the sheer terror of it. He did not move. He did not even blink. The creature pulled back. Its rumbling changed tone, became less aggressive. "More curious, that is right," David said. "I am not running. I am not attacking. I am just here. Just another creature, same as you." He noticed that the shadow maw was favoring its back left leg. The limb moved stiffly, not with the fluid grace of the others. Something was wrong with it. "You are hurt," David said. "Will you let me see?" He started to move, keeping his motions slow and obvious. No sudden movements. The shadow maw watched him closely but did not attack. David shifted his position, trying to get a better view of the injured leg. There. A piece of metal was embedded in the creature's lower limb, just above what would be an ankle on a human. The metal glinted under the emergency lights. It was a fragment from the broken containment equipment, driven deep into the shadow maw's flesh. Dark fluid leaked from the wound, blood though not red like human blood. This was darker, thicker. "That must hurt," David said. "That is why you broke through the barriers, is it not? You were in pain. You wanted it to stop." The shadow maw made a sound different from the rumbling. It was higher pitched, almost a whine. David had heard injured animals make similar sounds. The creature was confirming his guess. From the emergency chambers, Tolas's voice came through the intercom system. "Human, what are you doing?" "Get into a chamber before it kills you." "It is not going to kill me," David said, not taking his eyes off the shadow maw. "It is injured. It needs help." "It is a monster," Tolas insisted. "It is scared and hurt. There is a difference." David looked around the observation room. His backpack was on the floor near one of the emergency chambers, where he had dropped it when the window broke. Inside that pack was his jacket. He could use the jacket to help with the wound, maybe tear strips to bind it. "I need to move," he told the shadow maw, gesturing toward the backpack. "Over there. I am going to get something to help you." "Okay." The creature watched him. David stood slowly, keeping his movements smooth. He walked toward the backpack, never turning his back on the shadow maw. The creature followed him with its eyes but did not move. He picked up the pack and opened it. The sound of the zipper made the shadow maw tense, but it relaxed when nothing threatening emerged. David pulled out his jacket, a thick denim coat his grandfather had given him. "This is going to help," he said, holding it up so the creature could see it. "I promise." He approached the injured leg. The shadow maw shifted, putting weight on its other limbs, and allowed David to come close. Up close, the creature was even more massive. Its leg was thicker than David's entire body. The wound was deep, the metal fragment buried almost completely. "This is going to hurt," David warned. "I am sorry, but I need to take the metal out. It will feel better after." He wrapped part of the jacket around his hand for protection. The metal had sharp edges. With his other hand, he gripped the protruding edge of the fragment. The shadow maw's rumbling intensified. David felt the vibration in his chest like a second heartbeat. "Easy," he said. "Easy now. I am helping you," he pulled. The metal did not move. It was stuck deep in the creature's flesh. David adjusted his grip and pulled harder. The shadow maw made that whining sound again but held still. The fragment came free suddenly. Dark blood flowed from the wound. The shadow maw roared, a sound completely different from the rumbling. This was pure pain and fury. The creature reared back, and for a moment David thought he had made a terrible mistake. But the shadow maw did not attack. Instead, it lifted the injured leg and examined it. The metal was out. The wound was bleeding, but it would heal now. The creature seemed to understand this. David tore strips from his jacket, working quickly. He had done this before with farm animals. The principle was the same, even if the scale was different. He wadded up fabric and pressed it against the wound to stop the bleeding. "Hold still," he said. "Let me wrap this." The shadow maw incredibly allowed it. David worked the fabric around the creature's leg, tying it as tight as he could. It would not hold forever, but it would help until proper medical attention could be provided. When he finished, he stepped back. His hands were covered in the creature's dark blood. His jacket was ruined. He was exhausted, the adrenaline starting to fade, leaving him shaky. The shadow maw looked at its bandaged leg. Then it looked at David. The rumbling had stopped completely. The fear-inducing frequencies were gone. For the first time, David could see the creature clearly, without the filter of terror. It was still formidable, still dangerous. But there was intelligence in those many eyes, understanding, maybe even gratitude. "You are welcome," David said softly. His legs suddenly felt weak. The full weight of what had just happened crashed over him. He had been face to face with one of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. His body had been suppressing fear through pure willpower, and now that will was crumbling. He sat down heavily, his back against the wall. He was shaking now, could not stop shaking. The cold metal wall felt good against his back, grounding him in reality. The shadow maw watched him for a long moment. Then, in a movement that would be analyzed and discussed for years to come, the creature lowered itself to the floor. It moved its massive body in a curve around David, forming a protective barrier between him and the rest of the room. David felt the creature's warmth along his side. The shadow maw's breathing was deep and steady, no longer aggressive. The rumbling had changed to something almost like a purr, low and rhythmic. "Thank you," David whispered. He leaned against the creature's bulk, too tired to be afraid anymore. His eyes closed. The shadow maw was warm and surprisingly comfortable. Around them, alarms were still sounding. Security forces would be coming. There would be questions and procedures and probably trouble. But right now, in this moment, a human and a shadow maw rested together in peace. Both exhausted. Both survivors. Both understanding that sometimes the monster is just another creature trying to survive in a difficult world. From their chambers, the other students watched in absolute silence, unable to process what they were seeing. Balara's watery form had gone completely still. David woke to the sound of voices. His neck hurt from the awkward angle he had slept in. Something warm and solid pressed against his back. For a moment he forgot where he was. Then memory returned in a rush. The shadow maw. He opened his eyes slowly. The creature was still there, still curved around him protectively. Its breathing was deep and even. Asleep or resting, David could not tell which. The bandage on its leg was stained with dried blood, but the wound had stopped bleeding. The emergency lights had returned to normal. The observation room looked different now, filled with people. Security officers in heavy armor stood at a distance, weapons drawn but not aimed. Medical personnel with scanning equipment monitored the shadow maw from behind portable barriers. Instructor Balara floated near the broken window, speaking quietly with a massive figure David had not seen before. The figure was enormous, easily 8 feet tall, with skin that looked like rough stone. Its eyes glowed a soft amber. This had to be Warden Cray, head of Institute Security. David had heard about him but never met him. "He is awake," Balara said, noticing David's movement. All eyes turned to him. The security officers tensed. The shadow maw's breathing changed rhythm, no longer fully asleep. One of its many eyes opened, watching the armed figures. "Easy," David said, placing a hand on the creature's side. They are not going to hurt you. Are you? This last part he directed at the security team. That depends on the creature, Warden Cray said. His voice sounded like grinding rocks. Can you move away from it, student? His name is David Wells, Balara interjected. And before you do anything, Warden, you need to understand what happened here. I understand that containment was breached and a dangerous specimen is loose, Cray replied. The containment failed because of a power coupling malfunction, Balara said firmly. The creature reacted to pain and fear, not aggression. David Wells saved every student in this room by calming it. David slowly stood. His legs were stiff from sitting so long. The Shadow Maw watched him but did not move. He looked at its bandaged leg. How long was I asleep? He asked. 6 hours, Balara said. We could not risk approaching while the creature was active. You both fell asleep about an hour after the breach. We have been monitoring since then. 6 hours. David felt the stiffness in his muscles, the hunger in his stomach. He looked at the Shadow Maw again. The creature had stayed with him this entire time, protecting him even though it could have escaped into the Institute's corridors. It is not dangerous, David said. Well, it can be dangerous if threatened or hurt. But it is not mindlessly aggressive. It is intelligent. It understands cause and effect. It understands help when it is offered. It is one of the most feared predators in known space, Cray said. 17 research teams died studying its species before we developed proper containment. Because you treated it like a monster instead of an intelligent being, David said. He was surprised by his own boldness talking back to someone so clearly in authority. But he had spent 6 hours with this creature. He understood it now in ways these people did not. Explain, Cray ordered. David gestured to the Shadow Maw. Look at it. Really look. See those scars? It has been hurt many times. Captured, contained, studied. How would you react to that? The rumbling sound it makes, the fear chemicals it releases, those are defense mechanisms. They evolved to make prey run away, yes, but also to make threats back off without fighting. This creature does not want to fight. It wants to be left alone. It killed 17 researchers, Cray repeated. Did it kill them or did they die trying to capture it? David asked. There is a difference. If I walked into a bear's cave and the bear killed me, that is not murder. That is the bear defending its home. Balara rippled with what might have been approval. The student makes a valid point. All 17 deaths occurred during capture operations or initial containment attempts. Once proper protocols were established, there have been no incidents. Until today, when equipment failure caused the creature pain. Cray moved closer, though the security team looked very unhappy about it. He studied the Shadow Maw with his glowing amber eyes. The creature watched him back but did not seem threatened. You removed a metal fragment from its leg, Cray observed. Yes, sir. It was causing pain. Once I removed it and bandaged the wound, the creature calmed down completely. And then it protected you, Cray said. Interesting, I helped it. It helped me. That is how relationships work, is it not? One of the security officers spoke up. Sir, what if it attacks when we try to return it to containment? David looked at the Shadow Maw. The creature was fully awake now, all its eyes open and alert. It was watching the conversation, clearly understanding that something important was being decided. Let me try something, David said. He walked toward the broken window, toward the containment chamber beyond. The Shadow Maw's head turned, tracking his movement. What are you doing? Balara asked nervously. Testing a theory. David climbed through the broken window carefully, avoiding the sharp edges of remaining glass. He dropped down into the containment chamber. It was darker in here, cooler. He could see the corner where the Shadow Maw had been pacing earlier, the area where it clearly preferred to rest. Come on, he called to the creature. This is your space, right? You want to go back where it is comfortable? The Shadow Maw stared at him. Then slowly it stood. Its injured leg moved stiffly but bore weight now. The creature approached the window. The security team raised their weapons. Lower your weapons, Cray ordered. Let us see what happens. The Shadow Maw climbed through the window with surprising grace for something so large. It moved into the containment chamber and immediately went to its preferred corner. There it lowered itself down with a sound of relief. The rumbling started again, but this time it was not aggressive. It was more like the purring sound David had heard before, a sign of contentment. David approached it slowly. He knelt beside the massive head. Your leg needs proper medical attention. These people have doctors who can help. Will you let them? The shadow maw looked at him with its many eyes. Then it looked at Balara and Cray, who had followed David through the window. The creature is calmer than I have ever seen it, Cray admitted. In 3 years of containment, it has never been this peaceful. Because nobody tried to understand it before, David said. Everyone just saw a monster. But this is a person. Different from us, yes. Dangerous, yes. But still a thinking, feeling being. It deserves to be treated with respect. Balara flowed closer, though her form shimmered with nervousness. May I scan the wound? We need to treat it properly. David looked at the shadow maw. She wants to help. Like I helped. Is that okay? The creature did not move. Balara took that as permission and activated her medical scanner. The device hummed as it examined the wound. After a moment, Balara spoke. The damage is not severe. With proper treatment, it will heal completely within a week. I can have medical staff here in 10 minutes. Make sure they move slowly, David said. Explain what they are doing. This creature understands more than you think. Over the next hour, David watched as medical staff treated the shadow maw's wound. The creature allowed it, though its rumbling increased whenever someone moved too quickly or used a tool that made loud noises. David stayed close, speaking calmly, and the shadow maw remained cooperative. When it was done, the creature's leg was properly cleaned and bandaged with medical-grade materials. It was given medication for pain and infection. Through it all, the shadow maw watched David, as if understanding that he was the reason it was receiving help instead of punishment. Cray pulled David aside. What you did today was either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. I have not decided which. Maybe both, David admitted. You have changed everything we thought we knew about this creature. That will have consequences. Good ones, I think, but consequences nonetheless. All I did was treat it with respect. That is more than most beings would have done. Cray's amber eyes studied David thoughtfully. You are an unusual human, David Wells. I'm just a farm kid who is good with animals. That creature is not an animal. It is as intelligent as you or I. I know, David said. That is why I could not let everyone keep treating it like a mindless monster. Intelligence deserves respect no matter what form it takes. Cray nodded slowly. I need to make my report. You should go to the medical bay and get checked out. Then get some real sleep. Tomorrow the Institute Council will want to speak with you. David looked back at the shadow maw one more time. The creature watched him with what he could only interpret as gratitude. He raised his hand in a small wave. The shadow maw's rumbling changed pitch, almost like a farewell. The medical bay smelled like antiseptic and something floral that David could not identify. A doctor who looked like a small purple cloud examined him with instruments that beeped and hummed. After 20 minutes of tests, the doctor announced that David was physically fine, just exhausted and mildly dehydrated. Drink this, the cloud doctor said, offering a container of blue liquid. It will help restore your electrolyte balance. David drank it. The liquid tasted like citrus and metal. Not pleasant, but not terrible either. As he drank, the door to the medical bay opened. Rena entered, her chitinous body clicking nervously as she walked. I hope I am not disturbing you, she said. No, I'm just finishing up here, David replied. The cloud doctor floated away, leaving them alone. Rena stood awkwardly for a moment, her forearms fidgeting. I wanted to apologize, she said finally. I treated you poorly. I was afraid of you because you are from a death world. I let that fear control me. But watching you with the shadow maw, I realized something. You were more afraid than any of us. I saw you shaking. I saw your fear. But you controlled it. You acted despite it. That is real courage. David set down the empty container. I was terrified, he admitted. Every second. But fear is just information. It tells you that something is dangerous, that you should be careful. It does not have to control your actions. My people do not understand that concept, Rena said. When we are afraid, we freeze. It is instinct. We cannot overcome it, but you did. Humans have had to learn to overcome fear, David said. Our world gave us no choice. We evolved alongside predators much larger and stronger than us. We survived by being smart, by understanding the creatures around us, by working together. Fear kept us alert but did not paralyze us. Rena's chitin plates shifted. A gesture David was learning meant thoughtfulness. I have much to learn about your species. I hope you will forgive my earlier rudeness. Already forgiven, David said. After Rena left, David returned to his quarters. He slept for 14 hours straight. When he woke, his datapad showed 57 messages. Most were from Institute staff requesting interviews or statements. 3 were from his classmates, including one from Tolas that simply read, "You were right. I was wrong. Thank you for saving us." The last message was from Warden Cray. "Report to the council chambers at 0900 hours. Wear something presentable." David looked at his clothes. Everything he owned was either covered in Shadow Maw blood or was his everyday student uniform. He cleaned up as best he could and headed to the council chambers. The chamber was circular and vast with a domed ceiling that showed a projection of stars. 20 figures sat in raised seats arranged in a circle. David recognized several species. Others were completely new to him. One appeared to be made of living light. Another looked like a tree with moving branches. At the center of the circle was a single chair. David sat in it and felt very small. "David Wells!" A voice boomed. It came from a being that looked like flowing mercury. "You are here to answer questions about the incident in containment level 7. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," David said. "Tell us in your own words what happened." David took a breath and told the story. He explained the equipment failure, the Shadow Maw's breach, how fear had paralyzed the other students. He described noticing the creature's injury, the decision to help rather than flee, the removal of the metal fragment. He told them about the hours spent resting with the creature, about waking to find it had protected him while he slept. When he finished, silence filled the chamber. Finally, a being made of crystalline structure spoke. This was not Tolas, but something older, larger. "You claim the Shadow Maw is intelligent. On what do you base this claim?" "Its behavior," David said. "It understood that I was trying to help. It made choices based on that understanding. When I asked it to return to its containment chamber, it did so voluntarily. It allowed medical treatment because it trusted me. These are not the actions of a mindless beast. The Shadow Maw has been studied for 3 years, the Mercury being said. In that time, no researcher has been able to approach it safely. Yet you, a first-year student with no xenobiology training, accomplished what trained scientists could not." "Explain this," David thought carefully before answering. "I think it is because I did not approach it as a specimen to be studied. I approached it as another living being who was scared and hurt. I grew up working with animals. My grandfather taught me that every creature, no matter how dangerous, is trying to survive. They attack when threatened, when hurt, or when protecting something. They calm down when they feel safe. The Shadow Maw is more intelligent than Earth animals, but the same principles apply. Your people come from a dangerous world," the tree-like being said. Its voice sounded like wind through leaves. "You evolved among predators. Does this give you unique insights into creatures like the Shadow Maw?" "Maybe," David said. "Humans learned to coexist with dangerous animals. We domesticated wolves into dogs. We tamed horses, cattle, even birds of prey. We did not do this through force alone. We did it through understanding and mutual benefit. We learned to read animal behavior, to recognize the difference between aggression and fear, between a warning and an attack." "Are you suggesting the Shadow Maw could be domesticated?" the Mercury being asked sharply. "No," David said firmly. "The Shadow Maw is not an animal. It is intelligent, probably as intelligent as any species in this room. I am suggesting it could be communicated with, understood, maybe even befriended, but not controlled or domesticated. That would be wrong." Murmurs rippled through the council, the light being pulsed brightly. "Befriended? You believe friendship is possible between species as different as humans and Shadow Maws?" "I think respect is possible," David said. "Understanding is possible. After that, friendship might follow. The Shadow Maw helped me. It could have escaped during those 6 hours, but instead stayed and protected me. That means something." The council members spoke among themselves in languages David's translator could not fully interpret. Finally, Warden Cray stepped forward from where he had been standing at the edge of the chamber. "If I may address the council," Cray said, "I have reviewed all security footage of the incident. I have also reviewed 3 years of recordings of the Shadow Maw's behavior. David Wells is correct. The creature's behavior after the breach was markedly different from any previous observation. It was calm, even peaceful. This only occurred after Mr. Wells treated its injury. The evidence suggests the Shadow Maw is capable of gratitude, trust, and possibly more complex emotions." "What are you proposing, Warden?" the Mercury being asked. "I propose we establish a new research protocol," Cray said. "Instead of studying the Shadow Maw as a specimen, We attempt communication. We treat it as an intelligent being worthy of respect, and I propose that David Wells lead this initiative. David's head snapped up. What, sir, I'm just a first-year student. I do not have any qualifications. You have the most important qualification, Cray said. The Shadow Maw trusts you. That is more valuable than any degree. The council debated for an hour. David sat in his chair, trying not to panic. They were discussing changing centuries of xenobiology protocols based on what he had done. The weight of it felt crushing. Finally, the Mercury being spoke. We have reached a decision. David Wells, you will continue your normal studies. However, you will also spend 5 hours per week in the containment level with the Shadow Maw. You will attempt to establish communication protocols. A full research team will support you. Do you accept this responsibility? David thought about it. He thought about the Shadow Maw's many eyes watching him with intelligence and understanding. He thought about how it had protected him while he slept. He thought about his grandfather's words. Every creature deserves respect and understanding. I accept, he said. Then this session is concluded, the Mercury being announced. May this experiment prove fruitful. David left the council chambers in a daze. In the corridor outside, he found his entire class waiting. Rena, Tolas, Gentle Wind, and a dozen others. Even Instructor Ballara was there. That was very brave, Ballara said. What you are attempting has never been done before. I am terrified, David admitted. Good, Tolas said. The crystal being's voice was different now, humble rather than mocking. Fear will keep you careful, but you have shown us all that fear does not have to mean defeat. As David walked back to his quarters, surrounded by classmates who were now treating him with respect rather than suspicion, he realized something important. He had not stopped being afraid. He would probably always be a little afraid of the Shadow Maw, but he had learned what his grandfather always knew. Fear was just the beginning of understanding, not the end of possibility. 3 months had passed since the incident. David stood outside the containment chamber, datapad in hand, reviewing his notes before another session with the Shadow Maw. The creature's leg had healed completely, leaving only a faint scar. More importantly, they had made real progress in communication. The door slid open. Inside, the Shadow Maw waited in its preferred corner. When it saw David, its rumbling changed to the purring sound he now recognized as contentment. The creature moved forward, no longer limping, and lowered its massive head. David reached up and placed his hand on the Shadow Maw's snout. The skin was warm and surprisingly smooth. Good morning, he said. Over the past months, David had learned to interpret the Shadow Maw's different sounds and body positions. The creature had an entire vocabulary expressed through rumbles, purrs, and physical gestures. It could express hunger, discomfort, curiosity, and even something like humor. The research team had documented everything, amazed by the complexity. But more than that, David had simply spent time with the creature. Not always studying, not always testing, sometimes just sitting together in comfortable silence. He told the Shadow Maw about Earth, about his grandfather's farm, about horses and bulls and the old dog who had followed him everywhere. He did not know how much the creature understood, but it always listened. Today, David had brought something special. He pulled a small device from his pocket, a music player he had brought from Earth. He activated it, and soft guitar music filled the containment chamber. The Shadow Maw's many eyes widened. Its rumbling stopped completely. Then it moved closer to the device, examining it with fascination. This is music, David explained. Humans create it for enjoyment and expression. I thought you might like it. The creature listened for several minutes, then began making a new sound. It was rhythmic, almost matching the beat of the music. David laughed. The Shadow Maw was humming along. A knock on the observation window interrupted them. Dr. Ballara floated there with 3 other researchers. David waved them in. Over the months, the Shadow Maw had grown accustomed to small groups of visitors as long as David was present. Remarkable, one researcher said, a being that looked like a walking plant. It is responding to auditory patterns it has never encountered before. The cognitive capacity is extraordinary. Have you made any progress on understanding its language? Ballara asked. Some, David said. The rumbling is not just intimidation. It is communication. Different frequencies mean different things. Low rumbles are greetings or contentment. Mid-range rumbles are questions or uncertainty. High rumbles are warnings, and there are at least 50 variations within those categories. This confirms our analysis. the plant researcher said. We have been reviewing recordings of shadow maw vocalizations from other research stations across the galaxy. If we are correct, there is an entire language here that we have been interpreting as mere animal sounds. David looked at the shadow maw. The creature looked back, and in that moment David felt he understood something important. They are not animals. They are people. They have always been people. We just never bothered to listen. News of the breakthrough spread beyond the Institute. David started receiving communication requests from xenolinguists, behaviorists, and diplomats. Other research facilities that housed shadow maws began implementing David's protocols. Within weeks, reports came back. Other shadow maws were responding positively to respectful treatment and patient communication attempts. One facility reported that their shadow maw, after years of aggression, had voluntarily approached a researcher who had been treating a minor injury. Another facility documented a shadow maw protecting a maintenance worker who had fallen in its enclosure rather than attacking. The galaxy's understanding of the species was changing. They were no longer the fear beasts of the void reaches. They were the shadow maw people, intelligent and capable of complex relationships. David's fame grew, though he was uncomfortable with it. Students who had once avoided him now sought his advice. Instructors asked him to guest lecture. He received an offer to write a book about his experience. But the most significant change came 4 months after the initial incident. David was in his quarters when his datapad chimed with an urgent message. It was from Warden Cray. Come to the council chambers immediately. Important development. David rushed across the institute. When he arrived at the council chambers, he found them packed with beings he had never seen before. Diplomats from a dozen species, military officers, scientists, and in the center of it all a holographic projection. The projection showed a shadow maw, but not one David recognized. This one was larger, older, with scars that told stories of a long life. Next to it stood a figure in environmental armor. David Wells, the Mercury Council member, said, "Allow me to introduce Ambassador Krell. He has made a journey of significant length to reach us." The armored figure removed their helmet. Inside was a human, a woman perhaps in her 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. "Hello, David," she said. "My name is Ambassador Krell. 20 years ago I was part of a research team that crashed on a planet in the void reaches. We were the only survivors. We lived there for 6 years before rescue came. During that time we encountered the shadow maw people in their natural habitat." David's eyes widened. "You have known they were intelligent for 20 years? "Yes," Krell said. "But no one believed us. We had no proof that would satisfy the scientific community. We were dismissed as having trauma-induced delusions. I have spent 2 decades trying to change minds, trying to stop the capture and containment of the shadow maw people. Your actions at the Institute have finally given me the evidence I needed." The holographic shadow maw moved, and David realized it was not a recording. This was a live transmission. The creature was watching him from across the galaxy. "This is Elder Morrow," Krell continued, "one of the shadow maw people who helped us survive on their world. When news of your breakthrough reached us, the elders agreed to make contact." Elder Morrow rumbled, a complex pattern of sounds. A translation appeared on screens throughout the chamber. "Young human sees truth. Young human shows respect. We welcome this change." David felt his throat tighten with emotion. "You speak to your people? You have a society?" "We speak, we build, we learn, we love," the translation read. "For centuries your people take us, put us in cages, study us like beasts. We try to communicate. You do not listen." But young human listened. Young human saw person, not monster. The council chamber erupted in conversation. Species arguing with each other in a dozen languages. The implications were staggering. If the shadow maw people were intelligent and had been trying to communicate all along, then countless facilities across the galaxy were essentially running prisons. "Order," the Mercury being called out. "We must have order." Ambassador Krell spoke over the noise. "Elder Morrow and the shadow maw people are willing to establish formal diplomatic relations with the galactic community. But they have conditions. All captured shadow maws must be offered the choice of freedom or continued stay with proper accommodations as guests, not prisoners. Any future interactions must be as equals, not as specimens." "This is acceptable," the Mercury being said. "The Council votes to recognize the shadow maw people as a sentient species with full rights and protections. All facilities holding shadow maws will be notified immediately." David stood there overwhelmed. Everything had changed because he had treated one hurt creature with respect, because he had listened when others only feared. That evening, David returned to the containment chamber one last time. Tomorrow, the Shadow Maw would be given a choice: stay at the Institute as a guest and teacher, helping bridge the gap between species, or return to their homeworld, to their people. "What will you choose?" David asked. The Shadow Maw looked at him with its many eyes. Then it moved close and did something it had never done before. It gently touched its massive head to David's chest, directly over his heart. The gesture was clear. "Affection, friendship, family. I will miss you too," David said, his voice breaking. "Whatever you choose, I understand. You deserve to be free," the Shadow Maw rumbled softly. The translation device David now carried provided the meaning. Young human gave freedom when offered captivity, gave respect when offered fear, gave friendship when offered loneliness. This one stays. Teaches others what young human taught this one. Understanding crosses all boundaries. David wrapped his arms around the creature's neck as far as they would reach. They stood that way for a long time, human and Shadow Maw, proving that the most different beings could find common ground. 2 years later, David stood on a platform addressing the annual Galactic Forum. He had graduated top of his class and was now the youngest head of the Institute's Interspecies Communication Department. Beside him, the Shadow Maw who had started it all rested peacefully. "We call ourselves an advanced civilization," David said to the assembled representatives of 300 species. "We travel between stars. We cure diseases. We build wonders, but we forgot something basic. Intelligence comes in many forms. Communication takes many shapes. And every being, regardless of how different or frightening they seem, deserves respect and understanding. Earth taught humans this lesson through necessity. We survived by learning to coexist with creatures that could kill us. The galaxy can learn this too through choice. Choose understanding over fear. Choose communication over assumption. Choose to see the person behind the differences." The Shadow Maw rumbled its agreement, and this time, everyone in the chamber understood exactly what it meant. The sound was no longer frightening. It was the voice of a friend, a colleague, a fellow traveler in the endless journey of existence. And in 100 facilities across the galaxy, other Shadow Maws responded to the broadcast, their rumbles creating a chorus of hope that reached across the stars.